Hey everyone, it's been 10 days since I posted a video, so I figured it was about time to roll this Janelle Monae illustration out. I've actually had two videos on hold that I've been waiting to make. This is one of them, and the second is a commission I'll be releasing later this week. But I was spending a week moving locations and preparing for an internship, so there was a little bit of a pause. For today's video for Janelle Monae, I'm going to be doing a mix of commentary about the illustration and about Janelle Monae herself and her music and the work she's done. So it'll be a little bit sporadic back and forth, but I did really intentionally pick her as an artist, which I've never illustrated a mainstream, or I don't know if I want to say mainstream. She's obviously very successful and popular, but it almost has a negative connotation to it. So I don't mean it in a negative way, but I've never illustrated, I guess, a widely popular celebrity before. So this is kind of a first for me. First off, for the reference picture for this illustration, it was different than usual because whenever I illustrate models or fashion, I usually get it from a site or a source that clearly has the model listed, the photographer, the stylist, what publishing, whether it was a magazine or a specific event that image was being published for. So since for this illustration it was a celebrity, I was just looking up pictures of Janelle Monae and all the crazy different outfits that she's had. So I don't have any kind of citation for this, which is a little upsetting. I did try and search Google in a number of different ways to really try and find, at least the photographer, the magazine that this was for. If anyone happens to know or stumbles across it, it would be great to know that information. So no credentials, but it definitely was from a reference picture. And this illustration, I particularly wanted to do Janelle Monae 1 because of all the events that are going on in the US and internationally concerning race and civil rights, and 2 because I've never done a celebrity illustration before. I've been a fan of Janelle Monae's for a while now, and I'm not someone who usually is a fan of musicians or music artists. I really enjoy music, but I rarely look into their personal lives, or I rarely listen to musicians long enough to understand their musical journey or a variety of their albums. So it's kind of a special case for me. For the illustration process, it wasn't too different than what I usually go through. You can see I already blocked out my main shapes, and once I got the basic color palette, I started working on the details of the clothes first. I'd recently finished a commission that took 9 days for me to finish for a portrait, and I got a lot of practice with faces. And after, or in the middle of that portrait, I did do a video of Anak Yai, who's a model. But for that picture, it was a little more zoomed out, so it focused more on Anak's body and the clothes than the face itself. Janelle Monae's illustration, I really tried to make sure it was cropped up close and that I could practice getting facial features illustrated. I first saw or was introduced to Janelle Monae through her song Pink, spelled with a Y. I think I found it on YouTube, and she was pretty popular by then. It was her Dirty Computer album, her most recent album, but I hadn't heard of her before. And the video is very expressive and positive about female power and femininity power and feminism and rights and expression. And one of the signature things in that music video are these pants that were designed, and they're pink and frilly, and they look like, I don't know, I guess it doesn't really matter in this video, it's true. So the pants are modeled after vaginas. It's relevant to this video. That was the clear intention for the subject matter it was made for. And something that struck me was some of the dancers that were wearing these pants, because it was part of the topic of the video. didn't have the pink pants with the frills on them. And I don't know if I found it in a news article or an interview, but that was an intentional decision that was made either by her or by producers or designers that helped create the music video, that they didn't just want to represent people who had female reproductive organs, and they wanted to express the full biological spectrum of celebrating femininity. So that really struck me, and I thought it was cool and fun and bright colors, and of course that's something that I think is really appealing to the types of things I like to draw and illustrate. So it started with the pink music video. Then I started looking more into her as an artist, and I saw that she had a lot of other music videos from previous albums. For example, Arch Android was the album before Dirty Computer, where she was wearing suits and a lot of black and white, a lot of pantsuits, pinstripe, bow ties, very tux looking outfits. And one of, I think, the songs that helped pick up her like R&B career was a song called Tightrope, and she's wearing a total just like black and white suit, and it was very androgynous, or it was very professional but also stylized, and that really intrigued me. I think over time of just being a fan of hers and her talking more and more to the public and media about what her expression means and what her pieces of work mean to her, it's been really fun to hear how she's visually evolved as, I guess, a music and performing artist. I was reading that initially with her theme of like an automaton or her Fandroid, Arch Android album, that kind of separating herself from one gender or another, or having this androgynous look in fashion or in the idea of being an automaton, was a way to protect herself early on in her career, because she, felt pressure about the entertainment of being a black woman in entertainment, and she didn't feel like that she was the stereotypical or the traditional, I guess, facial view of that, or how she wanted to express herself in her music and that. So she used it as, and not necessarily in a negative way, because she like defended it and connects it to respecting her parents' professions. But now, since that, I guess she's been so successful in so many different ways, not just music, but also in acting roles and all kinds of things, her expression has really expanded from just androgynous suits or black and white suits. Of course, the picture that I'm illustrating her, I don't know what year it was because I couldn't find any reference material, but she has the yellow eyeliner and the blue suit still, but this big crazy earring. And the earring actually was one of the reasons why I picked this particular image, that and the eyeliner makeup, because I really love the big, I don't know if it's like shellac or a piece of plastic, but the red disc that's hanging with the 3 little jewels on it, I really liked that part. And of course she's wearing a hat. I don't know, I'm drawn to hats or scarves. After learning more about her development in her career, I remember by the time she had released a couple singles from her album Dirty Computer, but not the whole album yet. And when the whole album of Dirty Computer came out, she also released what she called an emotion picture or a motion picture, which was a 45-minute movie essentially, or narrative, that incorporated all the songs of her album into this movie. And I remember staying up really late and watching that and thinking, wow, I've never seen anyone do this before. I'm sure it's been done before, but I just had never had an artist that I liked, I guess, do it before. I get the first thing I think of is Mamma Mia and how there's a bunch of ABBA songs in the Mamma Mia movie, but staying up late in bed, watching Dirty Computer, which was, first of all, dystopian and sci-fi and all of those types of things mixed with like race and equality and queer topics and gender and class and relationships. Just so many different things thrown into the pot that I hadn't seen before, mixed with the sci-fi genre, or I guess space dystopian genre, where people of color or Black people were the lead roles and the lead driving force of the story. I'm pretty sure I cried at some point. I don't remember exactly what the plot of it was. There was a very clear narrative, though. A bunch of really fun, creative scenes and clothes, and my brain just exploded. I thought it was amazing. I'm a pretty big fan of sci-fi and dystopian novels. When I had more time to read when I was younger, I was really into George Orwell and Ray Bradbury. I've read so much Ray Bradbury. I have at least 4 to 6 of his books, whether it's full novels or books comprising of short stories. So reading that as a kid, and then of course being into the young adult genre of dystopian. So you have your classics, I guess, like Hunger Games and Divergent, and then you have some of the more, I guess they were still popular, but a little more on the side. So the trilogy Matched and Pretty Ugly something. I can't remember what the third word was. But that was about, I guess, a future society where massive plastic surgery and body modification was accessible to the higher class in extreme proportions. Growing up on classical sci-fi dystopian and then young adult sci-fi dystopian, and then seeing what Janelle Monae did, it just blew my mind. And not that people of color weren't present in any of the previous media I'd consumed that touched on those topics or themes, but it was just so up front and center. And not to mention a lot of the LGBTQ queer topics that were also very upfront and center, and commentary on gender. Anyway, so that's my little ramble on how awesome I think she is and how vocal she always is about topics she really cares about, and how her journey as a musician and a producer and actor hasn't been easy the whole time, and different struggles she's been facing with herself and her identity has been really great to witness. But for the illustration, going back to the technicality of it, not a lot was new. The hair, I had trouble trying to figure out how to do highlights, so eventually I didn't worry about it and I just sectioned it off into clumps and made them slightly different shades of brown. The only thing that ended up being pretty drastically different, I think, is the skin tone. In the original image, it had really high exposure and really bright highlights and whites. And I think because in my illustrations, when I don't want to spend multiple days on them, I just want it to be a couple days, like maybe 2 or 3 instead of 8 or 9. I have to really simplify the shapes, the number of layers I use for the face, and that means, depending on the piece, the transitions between the colors of each layer can't be too drastic. Otherwise, it becomes too obvious, or I'm meddling with the shapes forever. So I brought down the highlights a lot, and I made all of the tones a lot closer together, so the skin tone ended up being a lot more saturated and darker than the original photo. But I'm pretty happy with it, and I'm fine with making a decision like that, because people aren't gonna have the reference photo memorized in their head and directly comparing it. So it's not the point for me to be photorealistic at all. It's more to capture the shapes, capture the really bright colors that I like, and the form and the negative space that I think looks really cool. At the very end, I don't have footage of this, but instead of having the flat pink background, I overlaid a second gradient on top of the pink background. And I think having a more saturated gradient made it pop out a lot more. And something that I've been doing a lot more is after I'm done with my illustration in Adobe Illustrator, I'll put it into Lightroom, or I used to do it in Photoshop, but it takes longer for me to do it there. I'm a lot faster in Lightroom. And it makes a world of difference. I used to not utilize Lightroom fully or editing the photo post illustration fully. I'm really glad that I'm taking more time to incorporate that as part of the process and to keep that in mind while I'm illustrating, because there are changes and highlights and contrast and clarity and vibrance that I can make in Lightroom that are just so much faster than tweaking the colors forever in Illustrator. And that's not to say that I'm not trying to match color in Illustrator. I'm still being very intentional with it as much as possible, but it just makes the whole process a lot more efficient for me and faster. Well, thanks for listening to me talk about Janelle Monae. I'll be coming out with that other commission video at some point this week, hopefully, or maybe next week. And thank you for watching.